Shalom, guys. Welcome back to another episode here at Just Shardy Ministries with Yarah. Thank you for being there. We've been a little out of the videos off because of some technical difficulties, but now we're back. We're going to continue with the portions, Torah portion Vayishlach. We're in the book of Genesis, Bereshit, the middle of the story of Jacob. And so today is going to be short, sweet, and simple. We're going to somewhat close the chapter on Torah portion, let's say, and Vayishlach with Jacob at Bethel, and now he is back, right? He's on his way to meet with his creator, but before he does that, he has to finish some unfinished business. Okay, so let's get started. So like I said, this week's Torah portion is called Vayishlach and is in Genesis chapter 32, verses 3 to chapter 36, verse 43. And the Haftarah, the prophet's portion, is Obadiah, chapter 1, verses 1 through 21. And the Brit Hadashah, New Testament portion, is Hebrews 11, verse 11 through 20. Our Torah portion this week contains the story of how Jacob wrestled with the angel of the Lord just before he encountered his estranged brother Esau. During this grappling session, we recall the meaning of the name of Jacob. The angel injured Jacob's thigh, but Jacob refused to release his hold until he received the blessing, the Habrach. The Lord then asked him, "What is your name?" And he said, Yaakov. Then the angel replied, "Your name shall no longer be Yaakov, heel holder of Esau, but Yisrael, contender with God. For as a prince Zar, you have contended Zarita with God and with men, and have prevailed." Okay, now, before we get started with the Torah portion reading, let's do the Torah blessing. Bless Adonai who is blessed, bless Adonai who is blessed now and forever. Blessed are you, Adonai, God, sovereign of the universe, who has chosen us from among the peoples and given us the Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, giver of the Torah. Amen. So like I said, Genesis 32 verse 3 says, Vayishlach Yaakov malachim lefana el Esau, Ehiv, Arza, Zeir, Zede, Edom. In English, it says the following. Jacob sent messengers ahead of him to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom. He instructed them, "This is what you are to say to my lord, Esau. Your servant Jacob says, I have been staying with Laban and have remained there till now." Right, so that's the introduction to his Torah portion for this week. And this is the part where we're not going to get into too much when it comes to Esau and Jacob and the angel, because it's something that we talked about last year. Right, so if you want to see that, you can see it in the Shav page, YouTube. And there last year we talked about a little bit of the angel and the brother, but basically Jacob has a full circle moment with his brother in which he has to amend those things from the past and reconciliate with him before he is encountered with Adonai once more, right? So he's bringing peace, and so that's what we are seeing in this introduction of the beginning of this encounter. Okay. So, but we will talk about chapter 35, which says the following. Then God said to Jacob, "Go to Bethel and settle there and build an altar there to God, who appeared to you when you were fleeing from your brother Esau." Jacob said to his household, to all who were with him, "Get rid of the foreign gods you have with you, and purify yourselves, change your clothes, and then come, let us go up to Bethel, where I will build an altar to God, who answered me in the day of my distress, and who has been with me wherever I have gone." So they gave Jacob all the foreign gods they had and the rings in their ears. And Jacob buried them under the oak of Shechem. Then they set out, and the terror of God fell upon towns all around them, so that no one pursued them. In order to fulfill the vow made to Yahweh in Genesis 28, Jacob commands several activities, each with ritual significance. Jacob's vow had included not only the payment of a tithe, but the promise that Yahweh would be his God. Consequently, he instructs his household to bury their foreign gods, whose presence is indicative of divided loyalty. Burial is one of the approved methods of discarding images. Purification is a normal preparation for ritual activity. Those officiating in rituals often have outfits befitting their position, from the elaborate garments of priests and kings to the linen of assistants. But here, the celebrants are directed to change clothes. Some ritual texts, especially those involving the king, portray him putting on clean garments for a ritual. For many celebrants, however, the issue may not be what they are changing into, but what they are changing out of. When work or other activity has sullied one's clothing, it is appropriate to change clothes in order to avoid ritual impurity. So, the statement, change your garments, this was a very important step, both literally and as a symbol of something spiritual. Jacob wanted them to be cleaned up in their best frame of mind to come before the God they had neglected. Throughout the Bible, garments symbolize character. The inward life and unregenerated is compared to a polluted garment. Now, it is interesting to understand in the narrative how we see that there is a disconnect in morale and in representation of their identity when it comes to the actions, for example, of Simeon and Levi, right? As they defended Dinah's honor, right? It's something that we see where they circumcise them and then they kill them, right? They take advantage of that. And so it's a sign of where is this situation of the family and morally where are the disconnects with who they are and what they are living and the promise and the calling that they have, right? And that balance that they have to find, Jacob, once he receives the calling, he recognizes that there has to be a change. There not only has to be a change in him, but there has to be a change in his family and the community that he is building, right? Because the whole point of him being the son of the promise is him fulfilling that which was given to Abraham and Isaac. And so he is the image bearer of that promise. And so it's key for him to recognize that and represent it completely with how he acts. But not only that, but with his family. Like his family has to be in accordance to Adonai. Okay? And so that is where we are in this narrative where they're transitioning, right? They have to leave their past life to enter now the presence of Adonai and become the family, the seed of Abraham. Okay? And so let's continue. So it says, this was an important step, both literally and as a symbol, okay, of something spiritual. Like I said earlier, Jacob wanted them to clean up, best frame into a frame of mind to come before the God they had neglected. Throughout the Bible, garments symbolize character. The inward life of an unregenerated is compared to a polluted garment, okay? So it's conscious. How you look is compared to how you act and what you represent. Jude chapter 23 says, it gives the idea, but others save with fear, polluting them out of the fire, hating even the garment defiled by the flesh. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 22 to 24 says, that you put off concerning your former conduct the old man which grows corrupt according to the deceitful lust, and be renewed in the spirit of your mind, and that you put on the new man which was created according to God in true righteousness and holiness. Now, it is key for us to understand that the calling that is occurring, the transition that now the family is in, because remember, they went from patriarch to patriarch to the family, right? There is a full descendancy here. 11 to 12 sons, 4 wives, 1 Jacob. And they have to all turn back. And so before he comes into the presence of Adonai once more and is settled in the land with his family, there has to be a recognition of what it represents for them to be in this situation. There's a process of purification, but the most important element of purification is recognition of who and why you're purifying yourself, right? The consciousness of the act which you're committing in this ritualistic process of transition, which is to be clean in the presence of the deity which you represent, okay? And so, that being said, let's go. Chapter 35 says the following: Jacob and all the people with him came to Luz, that is Bethel, in the land of Canaan. There he built an altar, and he called the place El Bethel, because it was there that God revealed himself to him when he was fleeing from his brother. Now Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died and was buried under the oaks outside Bethel. So it was named Alon Bachuth. After Jacob returned from Padamaram, God appeared to him again and blessed him. And God said to him, your name is Jacob, but you will no longer be called Jacob. Your name will be Israel. So he named him Israel, right? So remember, this is key, and this is something that I talked about in the youth service, which was in Spanish. But I talked about this, the giving of the name, right? We see it in the Torah about men desiring a name. And the only way that we see that God gives you a name is if you live a life worthy of a name, right? And Abraham made a name for himself based on the testimony he gave and the way he lived. Same way with Isaac, and now with Jacob, right? His name, which basically says you have contended, but it's not contended against God. It's contended with God, or contended clinging to God, right? Because you have contended clinging to God, you have prevailed with men. Because you clinging to God gives you favor in the eyes of men, right? And so it's a very interesting dynamic that Jacob has fulfilled, okay? And so the recognition of who has given everything to him is what has given him a new name. All right, now let's continue. So it says, and God said to him, I am God Almighty, be fruitful and increase in number. A nation and community of nations will become from you. Kings will be among your descendants. The land I give to Abraham and Isaac I also give to you. And I will give this land to your descendants after you. Then God went up from him at the place where he had talked with him. And Jacob set up a stone pillar at the place where God had called or talked to him. And he poured out a drink offering on it. And he also poured out oil on it. And Jacob called the place where God had talked with him Bethel. Now, it's interesting because here, in the closing of at least what we're going to talk about for this week, simple, short, to the point, we see how in this full circle moment, Jacob recognizes that he has to reconcile with his brother and seek peace and wisdom to one extent. We see that in the process of that, he recognizes that there has to be a change made. Right? You cannot come into the presence of God with what you have, because part of what you have might not be pure in the eyes of God. So you have to be willing to change. And that's the decision that Jacob made as a family leader, which we all are called to do that. And he says we will remove the fallen idols, the contaminating elements, so that we can be in your presence as a family. Because that's what our promise is. Through us, many nations will be blessed. And so he makes that change, and then he recognizes that before he crossed the river, he only had a staff in his hand. And God provided this that he has for him, right? Based on the prayer, right? He recognized who he was at Bethel when he had nothing. And he recognized that the only reason why he was back in Bethel with prosperity and family and descendancy was because Adonai blessed him. And what he did was he was reciprocal to his deity and said, "You are my God because you have lived up to your word." And that's the biggest element of our deity. He says he will do, and he will fulfill his word. So that's all I got for this week. Simple. I hope you learned something new. If you didn't, I'm sorry. What's the point? I just know what I know, and that's what I teach. So have a great week. Shavua Tov and Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.